महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देवा सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। हरि ओम। Namaste friends and happy welcome one and all for session 14 of the new series Gift, Gita for Inner Freedom and Transformation. A selected verses from Bhagavad Gita based on Shankara Bhashyam. Feb 19 is considered as Shivaji Jayanti, the great emperor of Maratha in India during the 17th century. He was born on Feb 19, 1630 in the Shivaneri fort. He was named after the goddess Shivai. Shivaji's rule was marked by his military campaigns against the Mughal Empire, the Adil Shahi, and the Portuguese. He established a strong and efficient administration. He was a visionary leader who introduced several innovative policies and reforms, including the creation of a powerful navy. From this inspirational note, we begin to today's Gita session. We shall cover verses from 3.27 to 3.34 from the third chapter, while Lord Krishna will start explaining about two eyes, lower eye, the ego, and the higher eye, consciousness. These verses will be presented by Dr. Ambika, Dr. Sundar, Dr. Sachin, Mr. Shivakumar, and Dr. Rekha. We shall commence with the brief introductions of the topics of the day by Dr. Divakar Gautam. Over to you, Dr. Divakar Gautam.
Thank you. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Te Guru Paramparam. Om. With the deepest sense of gratitude to all the Gurus, all the Guru Parampara, especially Swami Paramarthananda Ji and our Guru Dr. Timappa Hegde, for bringing out these wonderful sessions, wonderful gift sessions, which is indeed a gift for all of us for every day's daily living. We are studying Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga, as we know, is in the first Shatkam of the Bhagavad Gita. First Shatkam, the first 6 chapters, deals with the Tvam Padartha, the nature of the individual, nature of the Jiva. And it deals with the sadhana of Karma Yoga. We know that the second Shatkam deals with Upasana Yoga and the last Shatkam deals with the Gnani Yoga. And the first Shatkam also deals with the self-effort. And we are seeing in these verses, starting from the verse 21 to 29, the duties of a Gnani towards the world and towards the Agnanis. Although this chapter is fully dedicated to Karma Yoga, we do find a lot of information, lot of messages given by Lord Krishna on Gnanam and how a Gnani should behave. And we saw this in the last session, in the 26th verse, that a Gnana Nishta, when we say a Gnani, we have to understand that a Gnani is a Gnana Nishta, one who is anchored in the Gnanam of Aham Brahma Asmi. Through Nitya Nididhyasanam, there is always a Nididhyasanam, one who is a Gnana Nishta, as told in the Sthita Prajna portion in the second chapter. And such a Gnana Nishta does not need to do any sadhanas. All the sadhanas are over. He is Purnam. Now, such a Gnana Nishta, here Krishna says, should continue the karma. Why should a Gnani continue the karma if he has already achieved everything? A clear-cut answer is given that a Gnani has a responsibility. responsibility towards the society, towards the locum. Therefore, a Gnani will have to do karma to become a very good role model. We all know how the role models play an important role in our own lives. We have all looked up to perhaps our parents or our uncles, one of the elderly people in our families who act as a role model. We follow them religiously. And we have role models in the community also. Shivaji himself, as told by Radha, is a fantastic role model for many people. We have so many such role models. So a Gnani here is being given a task of becoming a good role model. So therefore, he has to do a karma not for his own sadhana, not for mental purity, because he's already achieved mental purity. It is for loka sangraha, for the collective benefit of the society, for the upliftment of everybody else. Now, how should this Gnani or a Gnana Yogi behave when he meets an ignorant people? It's interesting that Krishna, as well as in the Shankara Bhashyam, it is said that the ignorance or those people who always think that moksha is a destination to be achieved at a later time. We have the karmis. Karmis are the ones who are completely materialistic. Let us say that they have no or very little knowledge about spirituality and they are so engrossed in their day to day activities. They think that moksha is not possible at all, or moksha doesn't exist, or definitely it is not going to exist, or they're not going to get moksha in this janma. And then we have a reformed karmi. A reformed karmi is a karma yogi. Karma yogi is still not prepared. Karma yogi feels that I'm still a sadhaka. I'm doing sadhana. For me, moksha also is a destination. So whoever thinks that moksha is a future event, they are called as ignorance. One could say that a level one ignorant is perhaps, a karma yogi who is actually, better than a karmi who is a level two or a highest ignorant. If a karma yogi says he needs to do more sadhana chatushtaya, and he says that I have to do more sadhana, then a gnani or a gnana yogi should say, yes, please, you continue. Because the fact that the karma yogi is not convinced about oneself means that some more internal purity has to go on. Therefore, a gnana yogi, gnani should encourage a karma yogi to continue to do all the sadhanas, particularly Panchamahayagna. We know that Panchamahayagna is Deva Yagna, or devotion towards the God. Brahma Yagna, our duties towards the scriptures and our Guru's propagation of Gita's teaching itself is a Brahma Yagna. Then we have Pitri Yagna, our duties towards our parents and forefathers. Manushya Yagna, duty towards the fellow human beings, and then the Bhuta Yagna, duty towards all the living beings, including the plantations, environment, etc. So, a Gnana Yogi should encourage a Karma Yogi to continue to do Panchamaha Yajna. And it is told that Gnani also should continue to do Karma. So, if a Gnana Yogi does the Karma, Gnana Yogi is also continuing, right? So, should we call him then as a Gnana Yogi? Why should we call him? Should we call him as a Karma Yogi? Why should we call him as a Gnana Yogi after all, if he is continuing to do Karma? The answer is clear cut no, because the attitude of a gnani or a gnana nishta is different to that of a karma yogi. The bhavana of a karma yogi is different to that of a gnana yogi. So this is what is elaborated in the next two verses, and Swami Paramarthanandaji says that these two verses are the most important verses of the third chapter. And in fact, it condenses the essence of the entire Vedanta, giving the technical meanings for the differences between a karma yogi and a gnana yogi. So karma yogi will have ahamkara pradhana bhavana. The attitude is more towards myself, my ego, my body mind. Ahamkara, that I am a sadhaka. If we say that I am a sadhaka, if I say I am a sadhaka, that itself means that there is an identification with the sadhakatvam, which is my own body and mind. And it is also called as avidwan. And a Gnana Yogi, on the other hand, will have a Sakshi Pradhana Bhavana. Bhavana is towards the identification with the consciousness. And therefore, a Gnana Yogi is a Vidwan. With this, we will go to the verse 27, where the Karma Yogi's point of view is elaborated. I invite Srimati Ambika to kindly discuss the verse 27, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Next slide. Prakrate kriyamaणानि गुणैः कर्माणि सर्वशः अहंकार विमूढात्मा कर्ताहमिति मन्यते. Under all conditions, all actions are done by the gunas of Prakriti. One whose mind is diluted by Ahamkara considers I am the doer. Next slide. Okay. The verse 27 and 28 are the most important verses in chapter 3, and they contain the essence of Upanishad. Shri Krishna talks about the action performed by Gnani and Agyani. Every individual has got two eyes, the lower eye called the ego or the Ahamkara, which is the Karta, and the Bhokta, which is limited. And there is an higher eye called the Atma, which is a pure consciousness, which is all pervading, which is not limited, which is Anant. The lower self or the I is the mind, which is located in this body and which is enlivened by the higher I, the pure consciousness. This mind is live due to the consciousness. The live mind, the Ahamkara, is located in the body. It is this live mind which experiences the Sukham and the Dukkham. The Agyani, who remains in the lower eye, is never satisfied. He is apurn. Because he does the karma, performs the karma for the happiness. Whereas the Jnani, who is established in the higher eye, performs the action with the happiness. Every individual is a mixture of Ahamkara. The ego or the Ahamkara is the lower eye. The Atma or the pure consciousness is the higher eye. As long as we have Ahamkara, we have that we are doing the karma, we will not be able to experience the happiness, absolute happiness. We will be having ups and downs, sukham and dukkham throughout our life. The moksha for the ahamkari person is not possible. Next slide. So the Krishna says, Prakrit karmani prakritehe gunani kriyamanani. Prakriti, which is the basic matter, which is the subtlest form of the energy. The guna means the product. Joining these two, prakriti guna means the product of the matter. All the actions that are performed by the prakriti guna alone. The prakriti guna means the body-mind complex, ahamkara. The Krishna says the sarvashaha. Under all conditions, only ahamkara act. The atma does not act. Next slide. So Sri Krishna gives the special title to the Agyani, Ahamkara Vimudha Atma, to all the samsaris. And who are the samsaris? Who do the karma or perform the karma for the happiness. So these are the ignorant people who are already deluded by the karta bhukta. They have the ahamkara of doing, or they have the ahamkara of the doership. And being deluded by this ahamkara, they are lost in ahamkara. They don't have the time, or they don't think about the higher real nature, and which they fail to enjoy the real nature, and they cannot enjoy the freedom. So caught in the lower self, these agyanis, karta aham iti manyate, they claims the doership. I am the karta ahamkara, I am the bhukta ahamkara, instead of claiming the aham brahmasmi. They are never able to claim for the higher I. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambika ji, for a nice explanation. As you have already told, the karmis are the ones who identify with the body-mind complex. They identify with their own ego and they continue to do all the activities for their own happiness. Here the prakriti means avidya or maya. This is the subtlest form of the unmanifested matter. When it manifests, it becomes prapancha. So this prakriti is also called as, these are all the technical terms again used in the Shankara Bhashyam. This prakriti is the karanam from which the manifested matter will come, which is actually called as guna, gunaihi. In this particular words, guna should be taken as product of the prakriti. So therefore, body-mind complex is the product of the prakriti. So all the karmas actually belong to the body-mind complex only. And when is this? Is this only at some point of the time or at some stage? The answer is at every time. Sarvashah, at all the time. So every action belongs to the body-mind complex only. We have heard that, we have read this, that the consciousness is akarta and abhokta. So therefore, all the kartatvam and bhoktatvam should belong to the body-mind only. And that person who identifies with this body-mind complex is being given a special title, is the Ahamkara Vimudatma. So that is a title that Krishna calls him and gives him. So all karmas, the materialistic, the Panchamaha Yajna, all the spiritual karmas are done by the body-mind complex only. In fact, even studying Vedanta, all of this is happening through body-mind complex only. So, and if I say that I am a sadhaka, then I am also identifying myself with this sadhakatvam. Therefore, that is ahankara also. Once I identify with the thought that I am a sadhaka, then moksha is something which will become a destination. It will become a distant sadhyam. And this is still a triangular format. What is the triangular format? Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara. And I feel like a victim in all of this. And we think that there is a God to rescue us out of these miseries. So Bhashyam further elaborates, Prakriti has a combination of all the gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamoguna in the equal measures. Whereas when it manifests into prapancha, then it becomes a non-equilibrium status. So as mentioned earlier, Prakriti is nothing but the avidya or the maya. It's also called as Naishkarma Siddhi in this context. And prapancha is the Vyakta form of that. Okay, now we will see from the Gnani's point of view. Okay, what does the Gnani say? How does the Gnani look at the karma? What is his association with karmas? I invite Dr. Sundar, please, to explain this beautiful verse.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Let's see the verse in the next slide. Tatta vittu mahabaho gunakarma vibhagayoho guna guneshu vartante iti matva na sajjate. As we see in this next slide, Lord Krishna reaffirms Karma Yoga in the beginning sections of this chapter. This is so because Arjuna had duvida or doubt regarding dvida nishtha, regarding Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. We can look at spiritual evolution as a simple equation. We purify our mind with Karma Yoga, come to know our true nature through Jnana Yoga, and then become free. In this equation, purity of mind can be attained only through Karma Yoga. Without Karma Yoga, Jnanam, whatever amount, cannot purify the mind. Therefore, Lord Krishna reaffirms in the beginning sections of this chapter. He explains Karma Yoga from 4 angles. At this point, at this conjuncture, there can be a hypothetical question. A person who has attained to Jnanam, for whom the means of Karma Yoga has fructified, is there any role for karma? That hypothetical question is answered in the 3rd section of the 3rd chapter, where Lord Krishna says that a jnani needs to do karma for loka sangraha and also to be a good role model. This raises another hypothetical question. If a grihastha ajnani and a Grihastha Gnani, both of them have to do karma. Both of them therefore have a similar lifestyle of doing karma. What then is the difference in the karma done by the Ajnani Grihastha versus the Grihastha Gnani? Addressing this hypothetical question is the present set of verses. In the previous class, a superficial difference was suggested by saying that a Ajnani is working for the sake of happiness, fulfillment, and security, whereas a Jnani is brimful of it already and he is working out of it, he is doing karma out of and not for the sake of happiness, fulfillment, and security. The previous and the present verses now present a slightly more profound technical, philosophical, and Vedantic difference between the karmas performed by the Ajnani Grihastha and the Grihastha Jnani. So, this verse, as we shall see in the next slide, the meaning would be, O Arjuna, Mahabaho, tu is a separator from the previous word to bring out the difference with regards to the karma done by the Ajnani of the previous verse to the present verse, which deals with karma of a Jnani. So the verse says, Tattavit, a person who knows. Knowing, what does he know? Guna karma vibhaga. So he's a knower of the discrimination between Atma on one side and Ahamkara and its karma on the other side. So this person is clear with regards to Atma and Anatma. He also knows that Ahamkara will necessarily interact with the sense objects. This is because the Ahamkara and the sense objects of the world, both of them are Trigunatmika, therefore they will necessarily interact. However, since he knows that distinction between Atma and Ahamkara, he is not attached or he is not affected by the Anatma, na sajjate. So this is the running meaning of this verse. Let us understand this verse more from Pujya Swamiji's Moolam as well as Shankara Bhashya. Let us see in this next slide the explanation given in the Moolam and Bhashyam regarding this word Tattvavit. This is a loaded word, and this is similar to the word Sthita Prajna of the second chapter, or the Gnani Bhakta of the seventh chapter, or the Parabhakta of the 12th chapter. Meaning is knower of a tattvam, knower of a truth. What is the truth that this person knows? He knows about consciousness, as is put by Swamiji. Consciousness is not a part, product, or property of matter. It is an independent entity which enlivens the body mind complex and makes it appear as sentient. With this definition, we know that this person is aware that Atma is the blessing principle. I am composed of two parts, Atma and Anatma. This person is aware that Atma is the blessing principle, and the Anatma part in me, which is the body mind complex, which is also called as Ahamkara, is the blessed one. From this, we know that Atma has got an independent existence of its own. Anatma, which has the blessing of Atma, does not have an independent existence of its own. So he has this clear distinction that Atma alone is Satyam and Anatma is Mithya. He goes one step further. This Atma is the cause for everything in this world as an effect. If we look at the example of wave and water, the water is inseparably intimate to the wave. The cause water is inseparably intimate to the effect wave. However, the same water, although it is so intimate, is not in any whatsoever manner affected by the wave. This is called the principle of transcendence and immanence. From that example, we come to know that water alone is. Wave is a mere incidental, insignificant distraction over the water. So the same can be seen in the relationship between Atma and Anatma. Therefore, Atma alone is. Anatma is a mere incidental, insignificant distraction over the Atma. Atma alone is in the guise of Anatma, in other words. So, this kind of a clarity this person has. Therefore, while Anatma does its karma and there are experiences reaped by the Anatma, he does not give overt importance to those experiences. Therefore, for him, the Anatma, body mind complex, is very light. It is not bhara for him. Pujya Swamiji describes that for a tattvavit, Ahamkara has become alankara. It is no longer a burden. So the Anatma, the body mind complex, does all its spiritual duties, but it does not germinate into samsara. So for him, the Anatma has become like a roasted seed. Let us see in this next slide further parts of this verse. At the same time, although he knows that Atma is immanent and transcendent, he is also aware that the Ahamkara has got three gunas. Gunaha Guneshu Vartante. There are two gunas as you see in this part of the verse. The first one refers to product of matter as Ahamkara. The second guna refers to product of matter as the world or the sense objects. Since both Ahamkara and the world or sense objects are Trigunatmika, they necessarily interact, Vartante, and therefore they generate experiences. How does a Gnani react to these experiences? This is what differentiates him from Ajnani. The Gnani is steeped in binary format. The Ajnani, having no understanding of Atma, therefore there's no question of abiding in Atma, is in triangular format. Ajnani is having an aware full living at all times. He is clear that Atma alone is Satyam, Atma alone is. Anatma is a mere distraction or Atma. So this is what is the Pratibodha Viditam Matam in Kinopanishad. The Ajnani has a aware less living, so to say. In the case of a Jnani, this Pratibodha Viditam is a deliberate inner dialogue through Nididhyasanam until it becomes spontaneous. Not so for the Ajnani. Because of this, he is able to see the body-mind complex as a neighbor. So Swamiji uses this term that because of objectivity to his own body-mind complex, he is able to neighborize the problems of body-mind complex. He is not overtly worried about this. Whereas Ajnani does not have this objectivity, is unable to neighborize this problem. So the Jnani, therefore, is unaffected by the Anatma, just as the movie screen is unaffected by the happenings on it in a movie, and just as the waker is unaffected by the dream. So he has this detachment, or he is unaffected by the happenings in the Anatma level. Therefore, he behaves as a akarta and bhokta. Although he may be doing karma, he is a jivan mukta. Iti matva in this verse is this huge quantum jump between these two columns, where the ajnani is in triangular format, whereas through this understanding, ajnani has moved to binary format. In this last slide, which is a conclusion, so as was said by Dr. Divakar, as a part of his karma, the Jnani, although he would feel that everybody in this world should eventually move to binary format, has to exercise due caution. So in this picture, the runway is triangular format and takeoff is binary format. So as Pujya Swamiji says, don't stay at the runway forever. That is, don't be in Karma Yoga forever. But at the same time, do stay long enough if you're not prepared for the takeoff. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sundar. The very, very excellent presentation and explanation of this beautiful verse. Indeed, when we get into the flight, when we have boarded the spirituality flight, spiritual path, with a pilot who is guiding us with all the gnanam, it is necessary for us to take off after the flight has taken into a right momentum. That momentum can be given by the Karma Yoga, but as you say, do not stay on the runway itself, and we all need to take off. Important verse, of course, that you have highlighted already. Tattvavid and Vartante, there is always going to be an interaction between the gunas and the prakriti, between the sense organs and the sense object. There is always going to be an interaction, and a Gnani is aware of it, and he disidentifies himself with this. And he identifies with the Sachidananda Atma. And that is a claiming of the Aham Brahmasmi at all times using Nididhyasana. Now we move to the next verse, which is a continuation of this particular verse. Dr. Sachin, please.
Hari Om, Om Gurubhyo Namaha. So the verse is going like that. Prakruter guna sammudha sajjante guna karmasu tan krutsan vido mandan krutsan vin vichalayet. So those who are deluded by the gunas of Prakriti, here again the Prakriti guna has been mentioned, which already very well described by both the speakers. So they get attached to such actions, and that's why whatever they do from the childhood to the adult and to the old age can be explained by the next slides. So balastava krida saktaha, a child always will be engaged in his activities, always focused on playing. Whereas the next slide will show tarunastava taruni saktaha, and the next will show the vriddastava chinta saktaha. So these are the stages of Agyani, and he will be engaged in the Prakriti, the gunas surrounding him, and he will, till the end, he will not realize that he is going through it. As the next slide we'll see, in the next slide we'll see that guna karmasu sajjante. So such people would never get time to come out of what they're doing because they are interacting, the body mind complex is interacting the world. They come at the end and they think now is the time at the end of the life that they will think about Bhagavad Gita or scriptures. So how does this verse explains us how the Gnani does in his entire lifetime? So, and as we see in the next slide, if we consider an example of a banana peel, a Gnani's ego is a mature ego. So this 3 or 4 layers of banana peel can represents the port Agyani always carries him with him. So can you just press? So the 4 things are possession, obligation, relation, and transaction. So these 4 things Agyani will carry, and he will interact with them and go on entangling himself. But a mature ego, a Gnani who possesses a mature, like he said, roasted seed, he will just use this skin to enjoy his being in this life and being mature out of it. He uses just as a fruit is matured through the skin and then it easily peeled out. That is a Gnani's a mature ego. Prakriti guna of a Gnani. That is the right way of living in the life. Next slide. But Agyani, he will be always in the BMW. BMW here stands for body mind interacting with the world. Prakriti gunaha, the prakriti of a person interacting with the gunas of the person interacting with the prakriti. So we all know if the fruit is immature and it is plucked, there will be slowly there will be an attachment which will be seen as a droplets from the branch. So Agyani's way of life would be in this format. And finally, we see how does the Gnani interact with the Agyani? Because Gnani also has to live in the same Prakriti as well as the Agyani. A Gnani always is away, he doesn't unnecessarily force this jnanam to a jnani. Like this example of two birds, the bird which is silently observing, he's a jnani, and the bird who is always chirping, he's trying to eat seeds, good fruits, bitter, sour, and he tastes everything in that branch. But the jnani is quiet, he has mature ego, and he lets the agyani follow his prakriti guna, and then hopefully he matures through this interaction. Hari Om. This is the meaning of the verse. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Sachin. Another nice example with fantastic images. This is again elaborating on not just the previous verse, but also the 26th verse, the responsibilities of a Gnani or a Gnana Yogi towards a Karma Yogi. As told already, a Gnana Yogi should never confuse a Karma Yogi. Swami Paramarthanandaji says that if somebody comes and asks a Gnani or a Sadhu and says, I don't think I am ready yet, I want to do Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, I want to do Karma Yoga, what do you think? And a guru will naturally return back and say, please continue to do Karma Yoga. If somebody comes and says that, can you tell me, Swamiji, that if I am ready for a sannyasa, Swamiji will definitely say that the fact that they are asking that whether they are ready to do sannyasa or not means that they are not ready. So one must continue Karma Yoga. So likewise, a Gnani should encourage the Karma Yogi to continue to do Pancha Mahayagna. So what kind of karma? We all have read this earlier. Karma Yoga means right attitude with right actions with right attitude. That is, right actions are Pancha Mahayagna and right attitude is our bhavana towards both the action as well as the results. Ishvara Arpana Bhava and Ishvara Prasada Bhava. Karma Yogi is called by Akritsnavit, not a Atmagnani. And the word Mandaha, Manda Alpa Pragnaha is the word which is used here. He trusts more and more of the karma only. He trusts more on the Veda Purva rather than the Vedanta. He feels that there is always intellectual knowledge, but it has not led for the emotional transformation. I think we can relate to this. Most of us will be going through this transitional phase. All right, we are on the runway. There is still some momentum to go, but we are still much better than people who have not even boarded the plane. There's only one way of claiming the moksha, that is through taking off. And that taking off is possible only if we have a proper momentum. So we are still on the right path, but let's, make the next push of taking off. That is the message. So Bhashyam further elaborates this by saying, we are performing karma for its benefits only, and that is a blunder. So instead of looking for the outcomes of the karma, if one sees that karma is required for internal purity, to getting rid of our malam, working on the six internal enemies, then one will be able to transcend that phase. And again, that identification should not come. That identification that I am a sadhaka should also slowly go away. Identification that I am a sadhana chatushtaya sampanna should also slowly go away. So here, again, the message is that don't shake the intellectual belief of a karma yogi. If one is a gnani or a gnani yogi, do not shake their intellectual belief. You encourage them because the ripening process is still happening. The karmas for them is like the skin for any fruit. The example is already given by Dr. Sachin. If somebody is not ready, you try to peel off the skin, it is not going to come. In fact, there is a very purpose of the skin being there on the fruit is for proper ripening. This skin is nothing but our karmas itself. So one will have to use their karma properly for internal purification. Only then the snapping will happen without any effort, as told in the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, Urvarukamiva Bandhanat. So once the dharmartha kamas, particularly dharma component is completely done, once there is dharma, adharma, viveka, and the sadhana chatushtaya karma and upasana yoga is done adequately, then the snapping will happen automatically. So one should not forcefully try to peel. What happens if they forcefully try to peel? Then obviously they are not going to follow their own swadharma. They might jump into paradharma. That is also explained in the subsequent verses. Then I welcome Shivkumar ji to explain the next verse, verse number 30. Here there will be a shift in the topic. Until now, the responsibilities of a Gnani was talked about, and this began in the 21st verse. In fact, from the second line of the 20th verse till the last verse. Now again, coming back to the main topic, which is Karma Yoga. Shivkumar sir, please.
Hari Om, Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. The 30th verse goes like this. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya adhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigata jvaraha. We already saw that Krishna has well explained his advice to both Gnanis and Agnanis. In this important 30th shloka, Bhagwan recaps the topic of Karma Yoga once again. An Agnani cannot escape karma. Therefore, here Lord advises a fivefold discipline for us to perform the duty as a Karma Yoga. Swamiji rearranges the words to make the understanding sequential and easy for us. The five important components of Karma Yoga is the Anvaya of this verse is Adhyatma Chetasa Sarvani Karmani Mai Sanyasya Nirashi Nirmama Cha Bhutva Vigata Jvara Shantam Yudhyasva. Next slide, sir. The first of the 5 points is Adhyatma Chetasa. The first condition to be a Karma Yogi is to have Viveka Buddhi, that is right knowledge or right discrimination, or Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka. Nitya Vastu means moksha, which is eternal. Discrimination for spiritual knowledge or moksha should be the primary goal of life. Anitya Vastu means Dharmartha Kama. The clarity of the primary goal of life is called Adhyatma Chetasa. And that clarity is to live with the primary goal for self-enquiry or self-spiritual goal. Shankaracharya, Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya defines this spiritual awareness as Dasabhava. We should be careful here. Bhagavad Pada talks about Dasabhava here till we cross over Karma Yoga, and not to be confused with as defined in Dvaita. Next slide, sir. Coming to the second condition, Mai Sarvani Karmani Sanyasya Adhyatma Chetasa. In this first line of this shloka, Sanyasya was carefully translated by Bhagavad Pada Adi Shankaracharya. Normally, Sanyasya means renouncing, but here it means offering or dedicating Sarvani Karmani, all actions to Mai, at the feet of Bhagavan. Sorry. Simply put, it is Ishwararpana Buddhi. This is the second condition. By converting our action into worship, we will end up doing our actions to our best, wholeheartedly, without any negativity, but with love and utmost bhakti bhava. So the second condition is Ishwararpana Buddhi, converting work into worship. Next slide, sir. The third condition is Nirashi. We know that a goal inspires action. A goal always inspires us into action. And if there is no goal, we lack inspiration to act. And we cannot do any job without a goal in sight. Planning makes us efficient, surely. But the flip side of this is that a goal-driven action goes hand in hand with worry, anxiety, fear, etc., which makes us forget our plan, reduces our efficiency and ability to act properly. Both planning and worrying are with regard to future. While planning is a deliberate action, worrying is a reaction due to our inability to face the future. Nirashi addresses this aspect of result of action or karma phalam. In this condition, Nirashi asa means concerned or anxiety. Nirashi therefore means dropping worry, literally being unconcerned about the end result, dropping kartrutva bhavana and developing prasad buddhi. The next slide, we see the fourth condition is nirmama. It means freedom from mamakara. When there is success, the ego immediately kicks in. And when there is failure, we try to justify with a reason or we try to find a scapegoat. Here, mamakara and ahamkara are terms related to the concept of ego, but representing two sides of the same coin. Mamakara refers to the feeling of owning, having, or possessing something as my own or one's own. It is a sense of mine and is associated with the consciousness of ownership. While ahamkara, on the other hand, refers to the sense of I. It is the ego or the I, the doer, that determines whether an object is his or not. In essence, ahamkara and mamakara go hand in hand and cannot be separated. They represent typically the typical asuric or demonic nature. That is the root cause of all troubles. Both these stand as obstacles to moksha. The sense of I and mine must be nipped in the bud, and not allow it to grow into mammoth proportions. Nirmama, Nirmama is being unselfish, disinterested, and free from all connections with the outer world. Our contribution in a success is minuscule as compared to many hidden, uncontrollable, variable factors from Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, and Adibhautika factors being favorable to us. All these external factors is Ishvara. Bhagwan here advises us not to claim the glory to ourselves, but have nirmama. Be always grateful to the Lord, and hence humility is the fourth factor. Humility that our success is only due to the grace of the Lord. In the next slide, the fifth condition we see is Vigata Jvara. Jvara means fever. And we know there are two types. One is Sthula Sharira Jvara or Kaika Jvara. The other is Manasa Jvara or mental feverishness, which can be due to stress, strain, tension, heated arguments, heated discussions arising when our mind is disturbed. And this happens when we function as a karta and as a bhokta. Solution for this is to maintain samatvam. Ishwararpanam is not mentioned in this shloka, which is again covered in the 48th verse of second chapter. If we consider all our action as Ishwararpanam, we will certainly be blessed with samatvam. Now, next slide. We'll recap the 5 points, recapping the 5 points program. The first one, Adhyatma Chetasa. It is the spiritual awareness of maintaining spiritual goal as the primary goal in life, and all other purusharthas as subservient and only as a stepping stones to the Parama Purushartha. Second point is Karmani sanyasya. They dedicate all our actions as flowers at the lotus feet of the Lord. Develop Ishwararpana Bhava. Third condition, Nirasir. Accept all the results as God's gift with Prasada Bhava, with full conviction that God cannot be unjust, and humbly thank the Lord for his blessings in success as well as in failure. Fourth condition, Nirmama, freedom from Mamakara with regard to the phalam. Fifth is Vigatachvara. In any situation, be free from mental turbulence. Develop samatvam. Yoga uchyate sukha dukhe same krutva labha alabho jaya ajayo. This is the second we saw in the second chapter of the Gita. I would like to conclude by quoting Swami Paramarthanandaji's quote. Take it as he advises this actually, take it as a 5-year plan if you need, and you can practice the first point or point number 1 for 1 year. The idea being, you take your time, but it is worth it. Hari Om, Shri Guru Bhyo Namah.
Thank you, Shivakumar sir, for another nice example. Nice examples that you have given and nice explanation. Here, the bhashyam of this particular verse, Vasudeva, is used by Shankaracharya. So Vasudeva has many meanings. One of the very profound meaning which is given is Vasuhu, means Vasanti Sarvani Bhutani Asmin iti Vasuhu. So this represents the Satrupa or Sadrupa Atma, the Sat component. Whereas Devaha is Divyate Swayam Prakashete iti Chitrupa. Therefore, Vasuhu represents the Satrupa Atma and Devaha represents Chitrupa Atma. Therefore, Mahadeva is sometimes Mahadeva, the Shiva is called as light of the lights. Devaha is the light which represents the consciousness principle. So, Vasudeva is the Sat Chit Atma. So, Sannyasi dedicates his karmas to Adhyatma Chetasa. In other words, again, Shankaracharya explains very clearly the meanings of sannyasa. Here, the reference is given more towards a karma yogi. Therefore, what a karma yogi should have, there are 5 stages which are of course talked about here. First is there must be a mumukshatvam. So he must have a single pointed mind towards moksha as a top priority. In fact, that should be the only priority. And the second condition for such a karma yogi should be sarvani karmani mai sanyasya. Do all the actions as an offering, as if they were Ishvara Arpana Bhava. So here Dasoham Bhavana is also highlighted. Does it mean that Shankaracharya is advocating Dvaita here? Yes, indeed. He himself says that one can be a Dvaita. In fact, there is no Advaita without Dvaita or Visishta Dvaita. But till what level? Till the level of Karma Yoga only. After Karma Yoga, one will have to become Advaita. Then the third condition is Nishkama Karma, Nishkama Bhavana. For any actions that we do, there should not be any selfish motives for any of our actions. So it should be desireless actions. And then Nirmamaha, freedom from the Mamakara on the Phalam. This is the Ishvara Prasada Bhava, which is already talked about. And then the most important one is the Samatvam, which is the equanimity throughout our life in our ups and downs. So in fact, if one does Karma Yoga adequately, Samatvam becomes a consequence. With this, we move on to the next verse, which is verse 34. But before that, there is a explanation which is given. Karma is something that nobody can avoid. That is the very nature of our body and mind. Even the very atom, electrons keep moving. So there is always a movement or an activity in every atom, every cell. So every individual is doing a karma. That is the very nature of it. And in the verse 33, Krishna says that, in fact, karmas are also determined by our vasanas, our innate natures, our prakriti. So does that mean that we don't have any free will at all? Are we all surrendering to the vasanas? And that is explained in this next beautiful verse, which will be explained by Dr. Rekha. Dr. Rekha, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Hari Om. So in this verse, Lord Krishna establishes the presence of free will. Next slide, please. The verse goes like this. Indriyas Indriyas Yarthe Ragadvesha Vyavastitau Tayor Na Vasham Agachet Tau Hyasya Paripanthinau. For each sense organ, likes and dislikes for sense objects is necessarily present. Do not come under their sway. Indeed, the likes and dislikes steal your spiritual wealth of right discrimination. Next slide, please. So, in the previous verse, Lord Krishna had said that one's swabhava cannot be controlled. So, this seemingly negates the importance of free will. So, the question is, do we not have a free will? And can we not transform ourselves? So, if this is so, it can make us very pessimistic that we can't change our status. Next slide, please. So, in this verse, Krishna answers the question in the previous verse, and this is an optimism-inducing shloka. Lord Krishna establishes the presence and importance of free will in all jivas. Now, this is explained in the Shankara Gita Bhashya, that the expression of free will or its non-expression depends on the type of body. Only the human body can manifest free will, and this is not the case with animals and plants. And this is what makes human beings superior, since we have an opportunity to work for liberation. So as humans, we can, using free will, we can plan, correct, improve, work, and accomplish. So how do we do that? Indriyasya arthe raga dvesha vyavastitau. Depending on one's swabhava or character, thoughts are produced in the mind. If these thoughts continue, saturate and nourish the mind, they get further converted into words and then into actions. Next slide. So Swami Paramarthananda ji explains this in the Swabhava Karma Cascade, saying that we have a higher Nirguna aspect and a lower Saguna aspect. Saguna is born of Prakriti. It is endowed with a predefined proportion of Sattva, Rajo, Tamoguna. The mind has previous vasanas, which together form my Swabhava. The Saguna I interacts with the Saguna Jagat and forms the first thought of Raga Dvesha, which I do not have control over. This first thought gives rise to a thought build-up which is uncontrollable, which results in karma, which in turn results in words leading to action. Fulfilled karma causes lobha and mada. Unfulfilled karma causes krodha, matsarya, and moha. So when the first thought arises, right discrimination, that is asking oneself, is this thought dharmic or adharmic? This can control action, but not when thought is built up. And this cascade robs one of immense spiritual time. So thus we learn to accept the first thought born of Swabhava, use right discrimination, and stop the thought buildup. Next slide, please. So this is just a diagrammatic version of the same thing, saying that the previous births, our prarabdha, gives us certain vasanas of which we are unaware. They are apratyaksha. And these vasanas give rise, as we interact with the world, they give rise to thoughts, vrittis of raga dvesha. And these are pratyaksha. And this we have no control over. But we do have free will, and we use Shastra Gnanam, which is free will enlightened by Shastra as karma yogis. We can process these raga dvesha thoughts, and this can give rise to refined action in the form of speech or in physical action. If no filter is applied, we become mere karmis. And our vrittis, ragadvesha vrittis, are unprocessed. And this leads to unrefined vyavahara. Next slide, please. So, coming back to the verse, vyavastita. The ragadvesha vrittis are necessarily present without exception in every human being. And this is the first thought which is born of one's swabhava. And one important lesson I learned is that one should not feel guilty about this first thought. What we should feel guilty is if we allow the thought to continue. And this is where we have to use our discrimination. So Lord Krishna tells Arjuna to nip unhealthy thoughts in the bud itself. Ask oneself the question, are these thoughts worthy or nourishing? If yes, dwell on them. If not, in the beginning itself, nip that thought. So the analogy is that when you have a ripple of water, it's feeble, we can attempt to still it, but not when it becomes a huge tidal wave. Next slide, please. Tayor vasam agachet. Again, repeating the same thing, do not come under the spell of raga, dvesha, vritti by nourishing them. Instead, cut them down. Do not allow a thought buildup. Another analogy is a flame. A feeble flame, the wind is the enemy. But the moment the flame becomes a huge fire, the wind cannot subdue the fire. In fact, it makes it grow even larger. So an unhealthy thought is initially like that flame which can be subdued by the intellect. Once it becomes an addiction, the intellect can no longer subdue it, and it will learn to justify it on the other hand. Next slide, please. Tau hyasya paripanthina. So these raga, dvesha, vrittis are like robbers or enemies in one's spiritual path, robbing us of precious spiritual time. So the essence of this beautiful shloka is that free will is present. We can use free will to discipline our thoughts. Again, going back to the words of Lao Tzu, watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Rekha, for a brilliant explanation. Doctor, as doctors, particularly working in the mental health specialty, and also having a bit of orientation and aware of the Bhagavad Gita and the Shastras, can confidently say that Bhagavan Krishna, Sri Krishna has covered all forms of therapies. This particular shloka is convincing me more and more to think that Sri Krishna has given the first model of CBT. CBT is the cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, there it is told that we all have a thought patterns that come automatically. So these are automatic thoughts. If, for example, if somebody has depression, they say or they think that I am useless, nobody likes me. I am useless, nobody likes me. That is a thought. That thought is an automatic thought. So in this case, it is a negative automatic thought. This negative automatic thought is here referred to as vritti. Now, where does this negative automatic thought come from? In the CBT language, it is called as a core belief. Core belief is something that we all develop growing up as a child, growing up in our early teenage years. These are all the building blocks, like how our body develops, our mind also develops like a structure. So what kind of ingredients that it takes in? What is the material that it gets added with? Starting from the kind of environment we grow up in, parents, schooling period, peers, all the experiences are memorized and it forms some kind of a layer. So we call that layer as a core belief. And through that, whatever comes through will lead to some kind of a distortion. So in this case, when somebody is feeling depressed and says, I am useless and nobody likes me, perhaps growing up, they would have felt episodes of abuse, etc. They would have felt like a victim or maybe criticized, and therefore they feel that I have to do certain things to be liked by others. If they don't experience that in their day-to-day life in the present day, they feel that they're being ignored and nobody likes them. You see how a core belief, which is a vasana, is influencing the thoughts. As Bhagavan Ramana says, it is our own thought, aham vritti. which is influenced by the idam vritti, which is the worldly thoughts. So both together will lead to what? Our actions. So that is the behavior in the CBT, cognitive behavior. So our behaviors are displayed through either our speech or through our actions. So I'm more than convinced that this is the first model of CBT, being a psychiatrist. So these vasanas, which are sometimes unconscious, which are most of the times it is unconscious, we refer to it as ego defense mechanisms. So, and because we are not aware of it, we get into a pattern of thinking, behaviors, pattern of thoughts. Those are called as raga, dvesha, vritti, and those will lead to our actions. So here vyavahara or vyapara is used. So vasana, vritti, and vyapara. So vasana seems like it is not in our control, but in reality, gradually with awareness, you can also start working on that. Vritti, the first thought which comes out of vasana seems to be not in our control. Yes, it is not in our control. Let us become mindful of that and start controlling the subsequent thoughts. How do we control it? We need a filter. We need dharma, adharma, viveka. We need some kind of a reference manual to think what is right and what is not right. We need some therapist, somebody to say what you are thinking is actually a negative automatic thought. What you are thinking is a distorted thought process. So that is what Bhagavan Krishna is doing. And thanks to all the Swamijis who's making this knowledge very easy for all of us. Then the Vyapara. Vyapara is transaction. There is always a transaction. It's just like they give money and we get something. So every behavior of ours we will receive something back to us. So that is the Vyapara or the Vyavahara aspect of it. So, and this is explained beautifully by Dr. Rekha. And when she was telling that we are superior to human beings because of our free will, and Krishna emphasizes this at several sections of Bhagavad Gita, and we will see this again in the 11th chapter. And he says, Nimitta Matram Bhava Savya Sachi. And there also it seems like fatalism he's teaching, but Swamiji explains clearly that it also gives a lot of emphasis for the free will. Bhava means you become an instrument. That becoming is our choice, whether we become an instrument in the hands of the God. Savyasachi is up to us. So this beautiful shloka, Ahara Nidra Bhaya Maitunascha, Samanyametad Pashubir Naranam, Buddhir Tesham Adhiko Visheshaha, Buddhya Vihina Pashubir Samanaha. So, which means what? We have four Purusharthas, Artha, Kama, Dharma, and Moksha. So Artha Kama is shared by all the human beings as well as all the Pashus, all the animals. Whereas Dharma and Moksha is only specific to the human beings, to Purushas, only if we use the free will. If we don't use the free will and choose the right path, and there is no difference between ourselves and the animals. So with this, we conclude today's session. Thank you, everybody. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. And thanks to all the speakers.
Thank you, Divakar sir, and all speakers of the day for a wonderful session. Thank you, friends, for your active participation in this divine journey. On coming Friday, 23rd February 2024, let us tune in for Kathopanishad session 60. Now, it's time to conclude the session. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om